Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Designated Motivator for Accounting Professionals Reassess Your Success session. We are here today to talk about inventory management and Fishbowl, which is my favorite app when it comes to outsourced inventory management. So today we're going to talk to one of my favorite people, maybe my favorite person. People, I hope I'm not hurting your feelings, but Colby Sanford at Fishbowl, the strategic partnerships. He's in charge. He's the director. So Colby, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do over at Fishbowl?
Yep. So like Don said, I'm over here, strategic partnerships over at Fishbowl. I've been here about 5 years. So I actually came up through the company, started out in support, did a lot of training. So implementation, on-site trainings, that's what I was most known for. Now made the shift over to partnerships and get to work with awesome people like Don and others. Obviously, Don's one of our favorites. If not the favorite,
Oh,
you bring it every time. So,
I love that.
we had to be a part of the lineup.
I love it. Yeah, so great. So Colby's going to be here. He and I are going to have a conversation through this webinar, and he's going to give us some demo and show us a little bit of the high level stuff that you're going to be looking for when you go ahead and implement something like Fishbowl within your practice. Well, not within your practice, but what you're recommending to your clients, which is super important. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Dawn Brolin. I am the author of the Designated Motivator for Accounting Professionals. I have a passion to help my fellow practitioners really push their practice into the next level. And so I'm also a certified public accountant and a certified fraud examiner. I'm the CEO of Powerful Accounting Inc. out of Windham, Connecticut. And I'm super passionate about passing on things that work for me within my firm that make me more efficient, more effective, more profitable, and just a better trusted advisor to my clients. I also own Fight Against Fraud, where I really work to help protect small businesses against small business fraud. And we know that's out there. And so it's important for us to keep that in the forefront of our minds when we are working with clients, because at the end of the day, they don't really realize that it's an area that they need to be focused on, or at least be attentive to. So that's my job, is to be their trusted advisor. And that's what I'm hoping today you pull away a lot of really good meat on how you can help minimize that risk of fraud through an application like Fishbowl, but also help that client be just better at inventory and paying attention to really what's important, which is maintaining their inventory, ordering, all those different things while keeping that fraud prevention at front of mind. So here we go. We're going to get started. So Reassessing Your Success, which is a book that I wrote here, the Designated Motivator for Accounting Professionals, which we will give you a digital copy of this book. Really reassessing what you're doing within your firm. And a lot of it is a mindset. A lot of it is, listen, I've been doing things this way forever and ever and ever. And by reassessing your success, we're saying we're reassessing the services we're providing to clients. We're probably making sure that we have the right partners so we can deliver whatever it is we're promising to the client. So if we're providing inventory management consulting and advisory work in that area, do you have the best tools in your toolbox to effectively deliver the service you're supposed to be delivering, but at a quality level that the client deserves? And I think that that's something we have to keep in mind. Now, as we reassess our success, and I have something called the Team Brolin Starting Lineup, where the applications and the partners that I've chosen to work with, and the reason why I work with them is because whatever their application is solving for the needs of my firm, and in most cases, solving for the needs of my clients. So for me, when I'm looking at client accounting services and I provide inventory management recommendations, I'm going to choose Fishbowl. Why? Because it is the best in breed. Because Fishbowl does a lot of things that we're going to talk about that as we go through this conversation. So thinking about inventory management, and I can reflect back to the perspectives that I've had and some interactions I've had with clients. And I remember specifically a client that I had who was still using the pen and paper. And this was only 6 years ago, folks. This was not something that was 20 years ago. And this is a young business owner who has a beautiful little boutique store that has amazing, great quality product. And people would come in, and she thought it really meant a lot to the customer to get these handwritten receipts. And, it's that personal touch. And I said to her, I said, Heather, you're handwriting receipts. You were spending hours, and I mean maybe even days at year end doing an inventory count. She was great about doing it, but she's like, oh, this week is inventory. And I'm looking at Colby, I'm looking at her little boutique store, and I'm like, this should probably take 4 hours. If you have a scanner, you have an inventory system, you should have everything you need at your fingertips. I mean, you must see that. Do you have like an awesome story about somebody who's a business owner trying to maintain their inventory, and you guys come in and save the day, but what did it look like before that?
Oh yeah, like how you explain that, it's not uncommon at all for people to still be doing pen and paper in this day and age. It's just, it blows your mind. And so, I mean, there were companies I went to, I mean, personally implemented a company that was doing, easily, $2 million a year, and they have, 3,000 different items that they're inventorying. They're still doing everything by pen and paper. Or they had a system, didn't like it, and they kind of go off of the whole, we're old school. And it's like, well, it's cool to be old school, I guess, but if you want to save time and not be, out here for 3 days just doing inventory, like, we have a thing, you can push a button and it does your whole count for you.
Zing, you can just do it. Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, pen, paper, spreadsheets, a lot of people are still on those. So once we come in, I mean, we show them the scanner and the application, that alone, people are like, okay, well, yeah, now we've saved us days of work from just going be able to put a barcode up somewhere and scan, we're done.
Absolutely.
So it's pretty wild.
It's wild, the stories, and I'm sure those of you who are attending here today are definitely seeing that same type of stuff. If you're involved in inventory at all, you're seeing, well, what I say is every time I walk into one of those scenarios, I'm like, I thought I saw it all. And I'm looking around, I'm like, nope, I think maybe now I've seen it all. Nope. And, and one of the things that, and we're going to talk in a little while, we're going to talk about fraud. And I think that inventory is certainly one of the most, cash businesses and inventory businesses are two of the most susceptible business types for fraud. And we'll talk about kind of how that all happens. And I really do find that and I kind of tell some of the clients that I have, listen, I am trying to scare you. A lot of times I tell people, this is my big line. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to prepare you. But in these cases, when it comes to inventory and cash businesses, I am trying to scare you because embezzlement happens every single day. And inventory is probably the easiest thing to steal out of anything. And so we've got to keep our eye on that. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But how can having a solution like Fishbowl in your toolbox, so when a client calls and comes to you and says, hey, we're a new client. We've got inventory. We want you, we want you to take over our books, or we want you to take over our tax return, or, we've got whatever issues it may be. Are you prepared to say, I've got your system for you. I already know what it's going to be. And here's what you're going to implement. Or are you still saying, oh, well, let's just evaluate what you might need, and just go through this, I call it hemming and hawing over nothing, but having that tool that you can reach in and grab it. And I like to relate it to a contractor. And this is kind of what I tell to the client. If you go hire a roofer, you expect that roofer to come with the roofing guns, right? So you hear them up, you hear the pop, 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 pop. They're efficient. They're getting it done. They're not dragging this job out. If you have the contractor show up and they got a bucket of nails and a hammer, and you see them walking up the ladder, and that's their equipment, I'm not sure, but I have a little bit different perspective on that contractor. We're the same thing. We're the same way. Getting ourselves prepared. That's the reassess your success. Are you ready for what's coming at you? And so a lot of times, some of the conversations we have, okay, I love my clients. And this is something that I've believed in for myself. I do love my clients, but I don't want to implement an inventory system. And that's where, and you may be in a different position. You may say, you know what? I love implementing inventory systems, or I love when that inventory client comes to me. And I say, you know what? There's a lot more value that I can add to you than being the person, the implementer of the solution. And what I love about my relationship with Fishbowl is I can say, hey, it's not probably Colby, but I'm saying over to their implementation team, I've got a client, their salesperson, we've got a client. Here's how it's going to go. Go ahead, reach out to them, and then your implementation team is going to do the job.
Yep.
Because Dawn Brolin doesn't want to do that, Colby, and you have those relationships with firms, correct?
We do. So a lot of what we do with the firms is it's kind of at your own discretion how you want to roll. If you're more of a referrer and you just want to say, hey, I got this client, this is what they need. Can you get that in place for them? We'll take it from sell to implementation and on. And we'll support everything, whatever it is that they need. If you want to be more involved, I mean, we do have some firms, some partners that will go through and say, okay, well, I want to be a part of the process. Like, I want to see what they're doing. They can even take over and do, if they know Fishbowl well enough, they can go through, do their own implementation and support that client throughout. We're just getting them the system. And so it's kind of however you want to take it. Majority of the people we work with, referrals. They'll say, hey, this is what they need. Can you help us? We trust your implementation team, your support team. Just go ahead, run with it. And so we have that all in place. Everyone's super experienced in what we do. Even a lot of our support techs have experience in training. So when you're talking to them, they're speaking from experience. So that's a lot of things that we cover. And again, as involved as people want to be. And I mean, you talk about some firms wanting to be involved, wanting to take on inventory. Majority of the people I've talked to running into at events or just over the phone, they're just kind of like, inventory, not my thing. Like, I don't want to deal with it. Like, if I have someone come my way, odds are I'm just going to send them to you because I just don't want to deal. And we love those kind of people because, we love supporting everyone and having that relationship with them all the way through. And again, we trust our team to go through, do trainings, implementation. So however you want to do it, we're open.
And that's what I think. And one of the other pieces when I talk about reassessing your success and the partners that you currently work with, and is it working for you, that kind of thing. And what I do love about Fishbowl is I can do that. So I personally don't handle inventory implementations, but my clients still need them. And so being able to just refer it to a trusted partner like Fishbowl, the other piece that I think is really important for me, because I don't know about you guys or other people who are out there listening to this, but I have had situations where I've sent an app partner out to, implement or call my client to do X, Y, and Z, and it hasn't been a great experience. And there's various reasons for that. So when you are deciding on working with a partner like Fishbowl, and my experience has always been positive. So you want to make sure you're partnering with the right people that you're getting. Number one thing to me always has been, and you can read it in my book or you can hear it on any of my webinars that I give, is that you've got to have an app partner that gives priority, top-notch support. Because when you're in a pickle, and I'll give you an example, when I was at a firm many years ago, and we had a marina client. And so guess what marinas are? They're open, they're Monday through Sunday, people. They don't stop. And if there's an issue with billing or being able to process a work order or whatever it is they need to do, guess what? They're going to call you on a Sunday. And I've done this. I've had to drive down to the marina 45 minutes from my house and go deal with their problems. I'm just not in that business anymore. I have no interest in doing that kind of service anymore. So if I can hand over an inventory to Fishbowl and they got issues on a Sunday, I know that Fishbowl is going to take care of it. And that's really important to me. I think so. Tell us a little bit more about the support. Like, what is there? Chat support, email? Like, what are the primary support?
So we have it all: chat, email. They can call in to our live line. Our live call rates are through the roof. We're like, last I saw, it's in the 90%. And you're going to get someone live on the phone if you're calling them. That's the majority of the support that we're doing, anyways. But you can reach us anyway. And again, we have implementation as well. So even for those newer clients that we're trying to onboard, get everything, you're going to have someone specifically to you and help you tailor everything within Fishbowl to make sure it fits what they need.
Well, and here to me, and this is really important from my, and it will be from you practitioners that are here with me today. Fishbowl has an individual that I have brought onto their team, and her name's Beverly Lang. Now, in our office, we have this WWBD. What would Beverly do? And so we've had that kind of mantra around our office because Beverly's our girl. She's our go-to. And so what the better thing about not just Beverly being an awesome person, just an awesome human being, but she's an accounting professional. And I don't know about you, but if you've had apps that say they work with QuickBooks, let's just throw that in air quotes, and you go ahead and you implement the app and the accounting isn't right and it's not mapped correctly and it just doesn't work the way you imagined it to work. On their end, they're like, well, that's QuickBooks' fault. That's my favorite excuse when it comes to applications. It's QuickBooks' fault. Okay, well, you know what? That's not a thing. And so so the fact that they have someone on their staff who's an accountant who understands inventory on a balance sheet, when inventory is sold, cost of goods sold is affected, and a sale is affected, and cash is affected, or accounts receivable, that there's 2 journal entries that happen at that moment. The fact that Beverly knows that is something that is priceless to me because I don't even have to pay Beverly to help my clients to make sure the accounting's right? I mean, that's just, that her experience will help all of us make sure it gives that level of kind of like, it's comfort in a way, but it allows us to have that trust factor because we know there's an accounting professional involved in the process to ensure that we're good. Okay. So really, really important. And not many applications have that. I would say that cushion of having somebody like Beverly in there and that. Yeah.
And that's why we brought her on. We knew she's one of the best. And I mean, she was our top partner for a long time. And that's why we brought her in. And so now we have our own QuickBooks side of Fishbowl. So if anything like you were explaining happens, hey, something's not communicating right or something, it just doesn't look right or feel right. We say, great, Beverly and her team can take that, run with it. And I mean, they're the best at what they do. That's why we have them.
Absolutely. And so also just, you kind of just moved us into this next slide just naturally and natively, but we have to know that the accounting is accurate. So the integration, and we're going to look at we're going to have a slide coming up here about all the different integrations Fishbowl has, and Colby's going to give us some real good detail on that. But the key thing is we know when we're working with inventory and inventory managing that particular function of the accounting cycle, which this is part of the accounting cycle, the integration with QuickBooks Enterprise is absolutely seamless. And so what I want people to understand, I love QuickBooks Enterprise. I think QuickBooks Enterprise can only take you so far. It can only do so much. And so being able to have something like Fishbowl that will sync into QuickBooks Enterprise, and there's various reasons why QuickBooks Enterprise has to be the solution, right, Colby?
Oh, absolutely.
So we know that there's list limits and things like that when you're in Pro and Premier. So you're not going to sync an awesome tool like Fishbowl that has what you need to really manage that inventory into QuickBooks Pro or Premier. You're just not going to do it.
No.
And so the system of QuickBooks Enterprise allows for that integration. So talk a little bit about that, Colby.
So yeah, I mean, that's the whole reason why we exist. I mean, QuickBooks is our biggest partner. We are tailored to them, basically. And so what we want to go and do is take that piece, because QuickBooks does a lot of things great. In the accounting world, awesome. Inventory management, and especially when we get into like manufacturing, that's where we excel. So we're coming in and saying, okay, great, we want to pair you with the great accounting and also have amazing inventory and manufacturing tracking to go along with it. And that's and the integration, again, when we get kind of towards the end, I'm going to do a little bit of a high level demo. I can show you how that integration works. Connecting to QuickBooks is so easy, and you get to go through, do your mapping so you can say, okay, this is where I want this to hit this account, this and this account. And it pairs so well just because, that relationship that we have. And I mean, most of our existence comes from working with QuickBooks.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what types of clients, I'm just going to give you a couple of examples to get your brain starting to think about clients that you may have already, existing clients that maybe don't have the best inventory system. And we'll talk about fraud in a minute too, so kind of get a taste of of why it's important, people. Okay. It's just kind of open your minds to that. But so here's a good example. There's a company called Tasso Inc. They're medical manufacturers out of Washington. So they create devices that are reliable and scalable to collect blood from patients remotely. So think about how cool that is. And so really, like, who would even imagine that's a thing? I don't know.
Some people's brains are amazing how they can figure this out.
It's insane that people are just so smart. So they implemented Fishbowl about 3 years ago, and they've been able to streamline their operational process, which Colby's going to speak to that probably a little bit more as we get towards the actual product of Fishbowl, and allowing them to scale and have better bottom lines, because they not only, you can be really good at having this manufacturing process, and your clients they've got that nailed down, but how do you track it?
Right.
How are you going to track from point A, B, C, D, E through that process? And that's the part that these really smart people who can collect blood from patients remotely, that's what they don't do well. They don't do well on how to account for it. That's what accounting is. Accounting is accounting for things. That's what the word means, right? So this is another great example of a company that used Fishbowl. And so not only did they already have their manufacturing process nailed down, but now they had their actual inventory tracking process nailed down.
Right. And I mean, and that's the great thing about the system is you talked about scaling and getting people up to that level. And that's really what our tool is about. And like I said, we pair it with QuickBooks, and, we really tailor to that smaller to mid-market of companies. And our whole goal is we want you to get to those larger systems like an SAP, where you're going to have to tailor something just because, large volume, you're having so much success that now you need to get into the nitty gritty of things. And so, I mean, I just went to a show a little while ago, ran into a company that we've worked with. What were they doing? I actually implemented them. That's why I stopped at their booth. They do like creatine and protein and things like that. They do a lot of health products. And I ran into them, I'm like, hey guys, how's it going? And they're like, oh, hey, Fishbowl, we use you guys. I'm like, yeah, I implemented you guys. So I know it's been about, 3 years, but they're like, oh yeah, we actually just jumped off you guys. We had to go to a bigger system, and this is where we're at. And they gave me some numbers, and like they kind of did it tentatively. They're like, yeah, we kind of jumped off your system. But whenever we hear that, we're stoked, because that means, hey, our product did what it was supposed to do, get you to that higher level, scale the way that you need to. And, it's awesome to see people do that. I love to see it. Yeah.
100%. That's, and that's the key. I find that with accounting is the same thing. I take a business to a certain level, and when they get to like a really high mid-sized client, I pass them off to somebody else who can do better things for them.
Right.
So that's a success story. Absolutely. Both ways. So here's another one. Here's another client, 3Win Corp. They provide brands, research labs, and extraction facilities. They have this C-cell hardware. I have no idea what that means. But they do in-house laser branding, which is super cool. Customizing packaging, you can imagine those types of things. The C-cell hardware, I don't know, and full promotional apparel to the cannabis industry.
Yeah.
Okay, so they've been using Fishbowl, and as you can imagine, I feel like in the cannabis industry, a lot of people are afraid of it. But really, at the end of the day, it's another product that's being sold that needs to be tracked, and it needs to be, needs to have its ability to do what it needs to do.
Exactly.
At the end of the day.
And that's a lot of people are afraid of it. I mean, there are regulations on it that people just don't want to deal with. I don't think it's like anything insane. It's just people don't want to deal with it. And
right.
I mean, we've gone through and implemented a few companies that do cannabis, whether it's the growing, the extraction, or, the end products. And, we work with another partner that helps us with our integration for Metric, which everything has to run through with cannabis. And I mean, we've seen a lot of success through there. And that's one of those type of companies that we're just not afraid to work with. Like, we want to go through that. We work with those type companies. I mean, just before I jumped on this team with partnerships, I was down working with, a firearms company. and we work with like ATF reports and making sure that they can track all of what they're doing down there. And so that's another thing about fish. We want to take on as much as we can, and we tailor to, again, like I said, small, medium-sized companies, because we know even though they have their specialties, a lot of their processes are similar, at
Yeah.
least to get them to that higher level where they are going to need something more tailored to them.
Right. Absolutely. And so obviously we talked about integrations, and certainly easy breezy. It integrates with QuickBooks,
100%.
QuickBooks Enterprise, and so many other apps that we wanted to kind of give you a visual. But Colby, if you want to talk about, 4 or 5 of the kind of big hitters that you guys implement that people would be familiar with. So here's our slide on integration. So
Yep.
if you want to speak to some of these, go for it.
So yeah, I mean, the big ones that people are going to notice right away, I'm not sure if they're on the slide, but I know the big hitters are going to be when you look at like e-commerce. So your Shopify's, your WooCommerce, your BigCommerce, Amazon, Walmart. We go through and we integrate with these companies because we really want to be, especially with these e-commerce it's huge. Everyone's going to have a platform there. So we kind of play the middleman with all of this. They go to their site, all the orders come through. We take care of inventory, processing, pretty much all the stages until, it goes out the door. Then we're reporting everything over to QuickBooks and saying, okay, great, look, this is all the stuff that we did. We processed it, manufactured it, packaged, shipped it, all that fun stuff. And then we say, here, QuickBooks, this is what we did. So you can report on it. You have all your normal accounting reports that, we don't want to take on because that's not our forte. And then, QuickBooks can do what it needs with that information. But yeah, I mean, our list of companies that we integrate is, I don't even know the number right now, but it keeps growing. I know we continually talk to other companies about partnerships and being able to integrate. We have an open API, so it really helps with those companies that do want to come in and say, hey, what can we do? How can we work together? And I mean, pretty much anything that you come to us with, we either have an integration for it or we can go through and build one.
Yeah, and that's just one other point that I meant to say in the beginning. This is a pre-recorded webinar, but what we want you to do in the chat, we're obviously been answering questions through the webinar so far, but we want you to, if there's another application that you may use that you're like, well, hey, what does it integrate with this? 100%. Throw it in the chat. We can answer that question because, like we said, they're not all listed here on this visual, but or if there's an app that you're using that you're interested in it working with Fishbowl, then, hey, reach out to Colby. Colby will get you to the right person for that recommendation, for sure.
100%. So yeah, like I said, talking to people every day, and it's not just e-commerce and QuickBooks. It's pretty much anything you can think of dealing with inventory. So even if it's just like shipping, I mean, we work with, ShipStation, Shippo, we have a product with, and, we also integrate with like Avalara and tax jars, so take over taxes and help in that aspect. But yeah, I mean, the list goes on and on what I could go on about. But yeah, any questions you have on that, let us know.
Awesome stuff. Okay, so I told you before, inventory is extremely vulnerable to crime, to embezzlement, to whatever they can do because as we know, we didn't put the fraud triangle up here, but I'll just talk to it real quick. You've got the 3 sides of a fraud triangle, and there's a thing. You've got the pressure that's on people. Okay, you can't control that, and it's one of the things in softball. I have my softball gear on today. Sorry, I mean I should have my Fishbowl shirt on. I have it right here. I have my Fishbowl jersey right here, by the way.
You're good.
So, listen, we could give away some of these. These are pretty nice. These are nice jerseys. They're so comfy. If you want a jersey, put in the chat. We'll think about it. Maybe we'll do a raffle or something. Maybe we'll raffle them off. But when we talk about fraud, it's the fraud triangle of pressure. There are things in softball we talk about. There's controllables. Can we control what the umpire is calling for calls behind the plate? We can't control that, though we want to. I get really fired up. But we can't control pressure. If people are under pressure, we can't control that. We also can't really control their mind when it comes to rationalization. So people are under pressure and then they're able to rationalize it. I'm out in this darn warehouse 24/7 and the owner's always in Aruba. They're rationalizing why they can take 30 cases of Mick Ultra, okay? Or they can take, 20 bundles of roofing product. They're going to be able to rationalize anything that they can rationalize in their brain. They're under pressure at home, maybe, whatever the case is. So 3 parts of that triangle. And you know what a stool looks like. You need all 3 parts in order for a stool to actually hold up a person. Okay. I've never seen a two-legged stool hold anybody up. Okay. At least not for a long period of time. Right. So you need that third side of the triangle. And the third side of the triangle is opportunity. Now that is something you can control. Because if you have a good inventory management system and you have a system of controls, you're going to be able to minimize the risk of a something fraudulent happening, a crime to occur. So that's your challenge as a trusted advisor in the fraud triangle. It doesn't matter if it's inventory or if it's cash or if it's time stealing or if it's whatever it may be. Fraud is going to happen if we don't close the gap on opportunity. And that is probably, for me, the biggest message I want you to get out of this webinar is eliminating that side of the triangle, which will minimize the risk of fraud. Now, inventory fraud perpetrators, people who are performing these frauds, what are they doing? Business accounting, diminishing or hiding sales numbers to evade tax agencies. What does that mean? The owner of the business changing inventory, because it's only a journal entry. Make a journal entry, decrease your inventory and increase your cost of goods sold. That's going to minimize your net profit and therefore result in a lower tax burden. People do it. It happens every single day. The IRS is as much on top of it as they possibly can. That's one way they do it when it comes to inventory. Employees purchasing and reselling the product. You've got an inventory man, somebody who's in charge of inventory, and they got their buddy Johnny at the supply house. That's his sales guy. Johnny makes a lot of money when he has a lot of sales. He gets commissions from that. Well, I want to be able to get product that I can resell myself off of eBay or out of my garage or out of my car. This is still happening, folks. If you don't believe it, go ahead to the FBI website. You'll see embezzlement schemes all over the place. I looked up an article today, as a matter of fact, about it. So employees purchasing and reselling the products, that's happening. Not only that, they're colluding with the salespeople. Hey, listen, I'm going to order 100, but I'm going to, charge me for 110, but, go ahead and send the purchase order over, but I'm going to take those 10 products and I'm going to sell them on my side. I'm going to give you half of it. I'm going to cut you half of the price of what I get for them. Happens all the time. Collusion all the time. Yeah, it's scary. Businesses falsifying sales to trick shareholders and further their investments. So we talk about financial statement fraud, which is where people are blowing up their inventory or vice versa, blowing up their sales in order to show their shareholders that they're making great money. And it may infuse more capital into the business and maybe get them raises or whatever the case may be. It's not because they're bad people. And the statistics show in the report to the nations brought to you by the ACFE, go download it for free off their website, acfe.org. You look in that report to the nations, the major majority of fraudsters are people who have never committed a crime in their life. I'm not talking speeding tickets, okay? I'm not talking speeding tickets. Because everybody, listen, if you're not speeding, don't get in front of me. I guess if you don't speed, please don't be in front of me.
Stay out of the far left lane.
Oh my Lord, can we work together? Can we please work together? If you are not passing someone, get in the right lane. It's not complicated. You want to get rid of road rage? Get rid of it. I know these things. But, I'm just saying that these people who are fraudsters, it's not because they're bad people or they recur. There are some, trust me. They go. I read an article in this case about a lady who was bouncing church to church. That's just terrible. Like, what are you doing? You're going to go right straight to the pit, sister. I don't know what you're thinking. So that's on you. But this stuff is happening. So what are some of the signs? And there are just a couple of examples here. What are some of the signs that there's potential fraud happening and with regards to inventory? We've got missing packing slips and sales receipts. Now, if you know, you've been through accounting school, you know you've got to have your purchase order, you've got to have your packing slip, then you've got to have the person who signs off on, yep, we received everything, and we're doing this manually, or people are too freaking busy. The packages come in, they start piling up, people are like, just get them on the shelves, just get the stuff on the shelves. And the people stocking the shelves have no clue that the piece of paper that falls out of the box when they open it is important. We got to make sure we got everything we ordered. We don't have proof. We got no case to stand on. So we're missing those things. We've got to have them. And when you see it happening frequently, there's a potential maybe a little red flag right there. Complaints from customers about lost goods. Again, if you don't have an internal control process over inventory and shipping specifically, then we don't have a way to answer the customers. And if we're seeing this as a consistent problem, then obviously something is failing within the system. Typically, it's people. But the fact that you have an inventory management system that is minimizing the risk because of the permissions and the different things that Colby's going to talk about is going to help with that. Another clue that something may be happening is spikes in the number of damaged goods. So we see damaged goods go up. Listen, I like a good dent discount, man. I'm not going to lie, man. I'm going to buy a refrigerator. I want that thing to be smashed to pieces on the right or left side because I'm not going to see it anyway. I don't care.
Oh my gosh!
But I'll take the $500 off the sucker.
Right?
That's me. I'm a dent and discount. I call it. So you've got that issue where people are actually literally themselves damaging goods. Certainly a sharp drop in sales during normal busy periods. It's that skimming from the register. Somebody comes, you scan the item. I mean, I do this physically. I go to let's say I go to the gas station. I'm going to buy myself a vitamin water. Big vitamin water fan. Love it. Not the zero kind. Ew. Just vitamin water. And I prefer orange if you ever want to bring one for me to a conference. So vitamin water. And so I'll get that and they'll scan it and I watch the register and I watch to see if they type it. I gave them $1 or $2, whatever it may be. And do they just push the drawer open? Do they finalize the sale on the register in front of me? I can tell you in a heartbeat if people are skimming off of that sale and they're putting that money in their pocket. It happens all the time. And that is part of what's happening with sharp drops. Now you're losing inventory. Somebody's taking the cash for that inventory. Happens all the time. Okay, like I said, we already went through all this. So, we went through all of the fraud. We talked about integrations. We talked about why inventory management and control is important. And what we're providing you is a tool that you can use with your clients. Now, for me, this is important for me. Why is Fishbowl the best? Unparalleled compliance expertise to help clients navigate that automation to do it the right way. Because guess what, people? You can implement any inventory system in the universe that you want to. But if the implementation and the training and how things are supposed to go, if they don't get that education, then you're wasting your time. Having that help desk trained to support accountants is critical. It's not just, somebody who kind of learned the product and so, yeah, they know how to scan something. That's not going to help me, but I'm having an issue with the way it's going into QuickBooks. So there's maybe a mapping issue. And so they can help you with that. That's critical. Benchmarking data so you can have informed recommendations for people. That's also super important. And certainly security. The cyber crimes that are occurring are only going to get worse. They're not getting better. And so we've got to have security for our clients. It's really important. So what we're going to do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to turn it over to Colby. And Colby, you go ahead and share your screen. And we're going to look at some demo and we're going to talk about why and see why Fishbowl is where it's at, Colby.
That's why we're here, right?
Absolutely.
Let's see here. So yeah, thank you, Dawn. A lot of that information, it's things that you hear about, but it's just kind of I don't think about that in my day to day. And It's amazing. And it's funny how many companies I've actually gone through and trained myself where it's just hey, yeah, we're going to have you train someone new because the person we were going to have you do it was doing something wrong. And so they're actually going to prison and you have to train this person. It's like, okay, cool. So
Onward and upward.
upward, right? So now one of the benefits with Fishbowl is we are GAP compliant. So a lot of issues, sometimes I run into companies where they say, hey, we need the system to do this and this, but it's not doing it. And we want to report over to QuickBooks this way. And it's like, and we have to tell them, we can't do it because it's not GAP compliant. Like if you want it to go over there and you want to manipulate it, that's on you. Fishbowl's not going to do it. So it takes a lot of those type of headaches out, and especially on the people that do the day-to-day. So going through doing sales orders, purchase orders, doing the manufacturing, doing your inventory, it's going to put limitations on them, and you can actually go through and change those limitations as well. To make sure, hey, this is all they can control, nothing more. So, I mean, and I'll just jump into this really quick. I mean, in here, you're going to see your accesses and you'll see every single module. You'll see everything that they can actually get into and say, okay, great, you can use this and this, but you can't use this and this. And you can go through and manipulate those as needed. Now, jumping into Fishbowl, I was kind of just going with that, but want to go back to the basics of Fishbowl. This is kind of what I want to show everyone, just so you can get a feel and a good look at what it is and what the product's going to provide for you. So looking here, I always come to this home screen just so you can get a good feel of everything that we cover, from purchasing to manufacturing to sales. You can go through, create dashboards, a lot of transfer orders, RMAs, type of things that you can do just within the company. And now when we get into these, a few things that I want to highlight, one being your dashboard. These are type of things that you can go in and you can customize on your own and just say, okay, these are the type of reports I want to see on my dashboard. You know, I want to see, open sales orders, or if you're in the warehouse and you're in charge of inventory in and out, you can just say, great, I just want to see everything that needs to ship, everything that needs to be received in, and you can see those dates and everything when you put them in. It's just a simple drag and drop that lets you go through and edit this and be able to say, okay, great, well, let me go set that all up. So a lot of customization there. And one thing I love showing people within this that are especially QuickBooks users, since again, that's what we integrate with. When we get into our materials, I know a lot of systems out there go off of the item. So you just have your item in there that you can work with. Fishbowl kind of separates that into saying, okay, we have a part and a product. So your part is pretty much everything that you're working with, whether it's a raw good, a finished good, something that is just a service, or anything like that is going to be considered a part within Fishbowl. And then your product is just strictly what you sell. Now, when we go in and look at this part, one of the things I love pointing out is this section here, as far as your tracking goes. It's one of those things that makes us stand out because we give that option to say, hey, you can put as much tracking as you possibly want on these items, and you can force everyone to be accountable. And you can go say, hey, we need a lot number, we need an expiration date, we need a manufacturing date. You can go through and customize these and add as many tracking, part tracking as you want. And it's going to require them each time an item comes in or an item goes out or item goes into another item for manufacturing. It's going to say, great, that's awesome. It requires these things. What are they? Tell me where you got it from, what the number is. And again, that's another big thing when it comes to scanning, which is going to make it so much easier. I brought up earlier on one of those companies where it was just like they got the scanner in hand. They're like, all right, world has changed. Like everything has gotten better and easier because now I can just walk up, scan it, and I don't have to run over to a computer, type it in, do it, type it in, and all of that business. So that's one of those things that love pointing out to people, as well as the integration. We've talked so much about how Fishbowl communicates with QuickBooks. And when I come to this configuration, this is where we can go and set that up. Now you'll see 3 options in there. Where with QuickBooks Desktop, you can also do online with QuickBooks and Xero. But when you come here and do this integration, now there's very few people that are going to be doing this. So those with admin rights can go through, set this up. Again, you can lock this down. Don't want everyone having access to it. But when you go through and you're integrating with it, it's just going to pop up, and it's simple. You know, hey, you have it popped up on the same computer that you're hosting your QuickBooks. You go say, hey, connect me, and then it's just going to bring up your chart of accounts. And you can direct where it is you want things to go and say, okay, great, labor goes to labor, overhead to overhead, or if you have specific accounts that you want it to go to, you can go through and set that all up from the get-go. Now, this is just your default. So anytime you're putting items in, it can get defaulted, do this, or you can do it on a part-to-part basis, product basis, and say, okay, well, these, you can set up a group of products and say, okay, whenever this is sold, it's going to hit this income account, or anything that's going through being processed, great, it's going to hit the COGS. We have separate COGS accounts. It can go here or here, depending on what group it's in. And so it gives you a lot of flexibility on what you can do and how you're going to report it. And again, that communication we have and that partnership we have with QuickBooks is the only reason why we can do that. But those are the type of things you're going to see with Fishbowl and why clients love having us. And now, again, we're trying to get everyone to be, you know, multi-million-dollar companies, get up there. So once you've outgrown us, again, super happy. But we want to be with you as long as we can and kind of get you through that process in the easiest steps possible.
Hey, Colby.
Yeah.
What about user permissions?
Yes. User permissions.
What happened? Yeah, because I think people like, I know we touched a little bit on it. So what kind of levels can you, I see where you have these user groups. Yep. You set the permissions based on that group.
Yep.
Is that
so
correct?
You can go through, create as many groups as you want. Two ways that I always did it with companies. It's either you set it up for a group or you can even set it up for an individual. So when you're getting those smaller companies, you know, you have 3 or 4 people that are in it using it, you can just go, great. Well, each of your jobs, you wear so many hats in each of your jobs. We're just going to go through, make sure you have the permissions you need, and we'll go through and create that. And they can come in here and say, great, they're going to have access to, you know, our inventory. And even when you go to inventory, there's a lot of rights in there as far as what they can do. So, okay, we'll let you cycle, but, you know, we don't want you to be able to scrap anything or have access to how much those parts cost. We don't want you to see that. We just need you to be able to go through and make those adjustments as needed.
And what I think people will recognize, if you're people who actually use QuickBooks Enterprise now, QuickBooks Enterprise has that similar type of user permissions where you can go in and say, all right, you're going to do accounting, but all you have to do is have access to the payroll account. If that's all you are, you're the payroll clerk, that's what you do. Or if you're somebody who's handling AP, you have access to the operating account, but you don't have access to the payroll account. And so I think, again, with that whole conversation of fraud, minimizing the risk of fraud, what we're doing here is you're going to implement a system that will minimize the risk of fraud only if you set it up and implement it in a way that it is successful. And user permissions are critical. More clients that I have seen that go in under each other's username and password makes me a lunatic. Listen, one day you want to go to court, I can prove nothing. I can't prove it.
Right.
So think about how robust this inventory system is to maybe an inventory system that you currently recommend or have used before. They're the key again to, and I'm the fraud girl. Okay. So I want to minimize the risk of fraud in every single small business because of the sacrifice they make to have a small business. And so these user permissions are critical. And as you implement. So when you are having the conversation, you're not maybe implementing, but you're talking to Fishbowl on behalf of your client is, listen, these guys never use use their passwords properly. They let everybody log in under everybody else. So make sure the implementers know that so they can nail, it's like having a freaking kid. It's like having a kid. You tell the kid one thing, don't put your hand on the stove. They put their hand on the stove. If Colby told my daughter not to put her hand on the stove, the kid wouldn't put the hand on the stove. It's the same thing. Let Fishbowl be the bad guy on how these types of conversations need to go.
100%. And those are the companies, though it is tedious sometimes to go through each individual right that they have within that group. Those are the companies I know are going to have the most success in Fishbowl because they're the ones paying attention and they're the ones that actually go through that thought process and say, well, do we want them to have access to that? Is that something they need? And, what would be the repercussions of them having access to that? And so it really eliminates a lot of that. And certain things you're going to see in Fishbowl are pretty much going to mirror QuickBooks because we know our users are QuickBooks users. And so it makes it that much easier to go through and navigate because they're like, oh, this feels familiar. And yeah, I mean, super easy to go through. Again, like Dawn said, make us the bad guys. I can't think of a person here that hasn't had that type of conversation with a client where it's like, well, look, this is what's going to happen if you don't do this. And we always have to tell people crap in, crap out. So whatever you're putting into this is what you're going to get out. So a lot of times, even Dawn brought up earlier, a lot of things that happen are user-based. Rarely is it the system. And if it is, then that's something we go in and fix. But I would say about 90% of the time, love all of our users and all of our customers, but 90% of the time, it's something they're doing that's causing the issue.
Right. And so, talking about so the scanner is a really great conversation because the scanner is that's kind of like the prize of sorts when it comes to visual. Love that the scanner is, all the talk of the town. Right. So what are some of the processes that when you talk to people, you want to have the scanner because you're going to need to what? Where does that really come into play in Fishbowl?
And we've done a lot with our scanning. So we have an app that pairs with Fishbowl. It's called Fishbowl Go. It works on any, iOS system or Android. And you can go through and pretty much at this point, do almost anything on the scanner. So we have the capabilities. Obviously, the first things we went in and added to it was being able to go through. You can do your cycle counts. You can adjust your inventory. You can do picking, packing, and shipping all from the scanner. And we've even recently gone in and added things like manufacturing, so they can do full manufacturer sets through the scanner. You can even do sales orders at this point, sales and purchasing. So when you do have these systems now, what I'm showing you, the system, it is an on-prem system. So when you have connections to this, you can do basically anything. We also have hosting services where we can put it up in the cloud. So if you do need access to it anywhere you're at, pretty much once you have that mobile app and scanning capabilities, you can access Fishbowl from anywhere. So you would just basically pop in, we'll give you a little address that it can connect to. And so you're out on the road. So we even have it where sales reps can go out and they're going through and closing something. They can put the cell right into their phone, just pop up Fishbowl Go, put the cell in, they're done.
How did you know hosting was going to be my next question?
It naturally goes that way with most conversations I have. So,
It's so natural. And when I talk about in my reassess your success is where is your data living? Mm-hmm. And that's all we can, we don't have time, but we could talk for hours about security and hosting, because if you think about it, I don't want my data on a local server that maybe isn't being managed as appropriately as a hosting solution where they're literally monitoring the hosting 24/7 by the moment, where your server may be serviced by your IT guy when there's problems. That's typically when let's be honest, everybody. And I would say the majority, not everybody, are calling your IT professional when something's jacked up. Because when it's business as usual, I'm not worried about it. but I need to make sure that my data is secure. You as the trusted advisor have access and keys to the castle. So regardless if you are implementing Fishbowl for a client, think about your firm just as a hot second, just kind of a little bit of a little value add here. Think about where your data is being stored. Consider having your data being hosted. But certainly at QuickBooks Enterprise is a memory sucker, just like Google, just like Chrome. Chrome sucks the memory out of you. Like, you think that, oh, it's the internet, I'm fine. No, it takes a lot of manpower to run Chrome. So think about the fact that your client, like he's saying, your clients are going to be able to access their inventory anywhere at any time, which, by the way, I really enjoy checking inventory on the boat. I mean, it's really great for me. I'm like, oh, let me pop on and see what's going on. Awesome. I don't need to be in the warehouse. I don't need to. So a customer calls your client and says, hey, I need 100 widgets of whatever it may be. Well, I'll have to let you know tomorrow. I'm not going to be back in the warehouse till probably Monday. So I'll get back to you. You know what? That sale's dead. You're done. So give your clients the tools for success, which is real time, right away. Let's get the product going, get the product moving, get the manufacturing people making what we need so we can get out there and sell it. So hosting was definitely was going to be my next thing.
Yeah, so I mean, just to go off of that, so we do host, obviously, Fishbowl. It's just called Fishbowl Hosting. So we can host your Fishbowl, your QuickBooks on there. Now, if you have other things that you'd like hosted on there, you can talk to our team. Majority of applications we're able to put on there. Again, it just comes down to security. We want to keep everything safe as possible and be able to make sure you have enough space on there. But we also even offer just hosting QuickBooks. So if you have your QuickBooks database that needs to be hosted somewhere, we can do just QuickBooks as well.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up here, Colby, this has been just great information. I think we've covered all the bases when it comes to all the bases.
I picked up on that one.
Bases. We got to cover bases. Our team right now is 12-2. Let's go. So what's important now? So just consider, and if you want to talk more about the partner program, because I think that's super important. That's what, Colby runs that whole area. And so colby.sanford@fishbowlinventory.com. That's how you can email him directly, which, hey, email him right away. You have to get on a phone call. Get the conversation going. If you don't have an inventory system to recommend to your clients, you've got to look at Fishbowl. And if you have other inventory systems that you are recommending, you may want to do some comparisons and take a look at what Fishbowl can offer you and your clients, for sure. Any last words, Colby?
No, pretty much. Yeah. If you have questions, come to me. I'm your guy. I love talking about this stuff, and I make myself available as possible. But yeah, again, just reach out to that email, colby.sanford@fishbowlinventory.com. But yeah, any questions you have, any information you need, we have a bevy of it. So let me know.
Absolutely. And you can find the designated motivator for accounting professionals at dawnbrolin.com. I got a lot of free stuff I give away. I give my price list. So if you want to know what Dawn Brolin's charging people, happy to share it. Just go to dawnbrolin.com. I'm not shy. I want to help you. That's why I'm here today on this webinar, to help you get the right tools in your toolbox so you can be successful on your own boat check-in inventory. And that's what we have for you today. So Colby, thank you, Fishbowl, for being part of this webinar. And certainly he is my favorite. Don't tell me. Or
I'm going to tell him. I'm going to put it out. It's already out there. So, and it's out there. I'm going to personally deliver this to them so they know. I'm just going to cut this clip, say, hey guys, this is all you need to know from the webinar.
It's not difficult. It just is what it is. So thank you, everybody. I hope you learned something here today. And, best luck out there. Reach out if there's anything I can do to help you. And thanks again for coming. Take care.